Let's take a look at the sewing card from Grimm Workshop. Like all the Grimm cards, this is stainless steel and small enough to fit in the credit card slot of your wallet or a personal survival tin. This white backer peels off and the backside is permanently adhesive, so you can stick this to an object and it's going to be there when you need it. All the tools come off the cards. They're all going to be usable, and then when you're done with it, you can reattach it to the card using the tool retention system. Just line it up, give it a press, and it's back on the card until you need it next time. So the sewing card is a nearly complete sewing kit. There are 24 needles on this kit, as well as 4 replaceable buttons and an awl. So this is the largest needle in the kit, and there are 5 of these size needles. This is about 1.75 inches long, and it has a really fine point on it. So this would work great for first aid as well. It would work a lot better than the point of your knife most of the time for picking out a splinter. So the next needle, this is about 1.25 inches, and there's 5 of these as well. It has that same tapered profile and that same sharp tip. So this is the smallest needle in the kit, and there's 11 of these, and this is just 1 inch long. And that is a really fine needle. This is going to work great for modern fabric. With heavier wool and leather and hides, you can get away with a thicker, larger needle, but for some of the synthetics or for your sleeping bag or nylon, maybe if you were to rip your hammock, a small, fine needle like this is going to give you your best results. So here is an awl, and the awl is about 2 inches long, and it's quite a bit larger than the needle. And that's going to work out great. It's going to save wear and tear on your needles, possibly damaging them. With the awl, you can open up hides if you were working with leather or any type of tougher fabric. This is going to be your main brunt tool. This is going to get the holes through. That way you have an easier time sewing it with the finer needles. So this kind of bridges the gap between your awl and your largest needle. The length on this is about 1.25 inches, and it's got that heavy taper to it like your awl does. So it's going to be stronger by nature. There are 2 of these on the card. I would use this on coarser natural fabrics such as wool, if I was to put a hole in my anorak, or a wool blanket, a canvas tarp, anything like that. I would go after with this larger needle just because it's a little bit easier to control. I also have 4 buttons on the card. Now this is pretty unique. I never would even thought to add one of these. You can make wooden buttons without a whole lot of work, but it is time consuming and it's a lot of fiddling around. And a card like this is not something that's necessarily tied to the woods. You could have this card in your EDC gear. This is TSA friendly, so you could have this in your normal travel gear. This is a pretty complete sewing kit for a lot of different environments. In a woodland setting, a steel needle was one of the more commonly requested trade items in the American frontier. So if the first peoples thought that much of a steel needle, then you should probably be carrying one too. When you're on a minimum gear trip or when you don't have that many items with you, keeping your clothing and your gear in top repair could make all the difference. I think the sewing card is a great way to carry needles. For years, I had a needle taped to the back side of my knife sheath. That was a Dave Canterbury trick. I have more knives than needles, unfortunately, and I kind of switch out knives from time to time. So I did get away from that. I've also gone to a Sami style needle case. Now the Sami people were reindeer herders, and they traditionally carried a sewing kit on their belt. So again, you're talking about people who lived in the wilderness, and a needle was that important to them that they kept it on their belt with their belt knife all the time. And I do have one of those, and I've made several, and they are a great way to carry sewing gear in the field. But this is a whole lot better. On my day-to-day life, I can slip this in my wallet and not really think about it. Having a Sami sewing tube dangling around my belt is probably not the look I'm going for. So these needles would work with improvised cordage. You could use inner strands of paracord, you could use fishing line, but if I was packing this, especially in an urban setting, I might be carrying Kevlar line. I might just carry regular sewing thread, because when it comes down to it, you're going to be just putting a button back on a shirt as often as you're repairing your anorak in the wilderness. So think of this kit as a modern version of the Sami sewing kit. You've got over 24 needles here with awl and a button. So a little bit of cordage, and you could use that with paracord inner strands. You could carry Kevlar line if you're more in an urban setting. Carrying regular sewing thread would be completely acceptable as well. This kit has a lot going for it.